How's everyone doing?
Great.
Good. So we had some food for the body and now some more food for the mind. You know, they often speak to this about the graveyard session. So hopefully it won't be so much of the graveyard session, that you're going to find it interesting and stimulating. Are we all here? So before we went on lunch, I spoke about the opportunity gaps, and I said that the opportunity gaps are more than just the few words that you see on the slide, that you must look at opportunities in all areas of your lives. Okay, to look at that, change that paradigm, to see a life of abundance. And if you see a life of abundance, you will start seeing opportunities. So the philanthropic response, if you look at fundraising again, if you take the challenges that we are faced with in South Africa, the challenges that organizations like ASRI and many others are trying to address, philanthropic entities like the Motsepe Foundation or the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation and many of the corporates in South Africa, they have embraced the need to become involved in trying to resolve some of the intractable problems that we are facing. So they are prepared to be involved in capacity building, in funding students to study at university, in dealing with the shortages or the scarce skills, in dealing with the health challenges. So they are prepared to become involved. Once again, it comes back to this point that I mentioned earlier on to you. Do you have a compelling project? Okay, they are willing to, and there's money available. There is money available, so the resources are there. It just depends on at what level and how compelling your pitch is. So they are also able to assist with infrastructural development, to fund research, and of course, as I mentioned earlier to you, the major need, if you look at the Fees Must Fall campaign, is the skills development through bursaries. And of course, at the end of it, there is financial support for innovative initiatives. And I'm hoping that any of the projects that emanates from this room is going to be innovative, somewhat disruptive, creative, that finds the shortest possible way in order to deal with some of our challenges. Yes?
When you talk about bursaries, are you referring to merit-based bursaries or needs-based?
Needs-based. Okay, now that's a good question because I've been very involved in this. I would like to think that the need is also wrapped in merit. So a deserving student who has done well at school but doesn't have the financial means to study, that person will have a better chance to attract funding than a mediocre student who has average results at school and who wants to go to university.
But then what happens in the instance, because I mean like, especially for are we not then perpetuating a cycle? Because I mean, if you take black students who come from a township school, often the case is that their academic results aren't an accurate representation of their ability, because there are other factors to contend with. Number one, language barrier issues. Number two, teacher incompetence. So really, the academic results of a black student who comes from a township may not necessarily be an accurate representation of their academic ability. So then do we then exclude them based on their academics while not taking into account the other mitigating factors? So then in that sense, are we then not perpetuating a cycle where students who get academic results which aren't deemed eligible are then confined to FET colleges or having to work after a trip. While you have students who have supportive structures at home who can actually overcome the fact that they come from a township school or who have support within their household, which still makes them able to achieve academic results, then those are the students who get those bursaries. So it seems like we are perpetuating a system of exclusion, essentially.
Okay, what's your name?
Ditswanelo.
Sorry?
Ditswanelo.
Ditswanelo.
Yes.
Tswana.
No.
Sutu.
No.
Oh, okay. Ditswanelo, it's a very good question. And I think that money goes to where it thinks, it believes it can get the best return. Okay? So even though I understand the issues that you have raised, if I take someone who's come from a background where there are causal factors, inhibitions, etc., that has impacted, well, basically, I don't know what the true potential of that person is. Whereas when I worked on what is called the UNITE program, the University Intensive Tuition for Engineers, we had nothing else to go on but to look at the results. So if you take Umlazi in Durban, one of the biggest townships in Durban, and you had students coming from Zweli Banzi High School, you had some who did exceptionally well and some who did exceptionally poorly. Now the ones who did poorly, we don't have the resources to interrogate why this person did poorly and to have the correct psychometric tests to determine that. And none of the corporates, I can assure you, will be able to do that. So we look at what is the easiest indicator of success or potential success. Now, unfortunately, the only flawed one we have in this country, and that applies to all of you, is perhaps your matric certificate. So when you apply to university or you apply to for a bursary, you send in your matric certificate. Now, it doesn't matter, the matric certificate doesn't tell people, you know, the fact that your mother has died or this has happened in your life, but it is the only thing we can really go on. But the points you have mentioned are very relevant ones. And if you can come up with a way of testing that, then I think you're onto a good thing. Yes?
Okay. Afternoon, everyone.
Afternoon.
Oh, my name is Mafuni.
Hi.
I think just to maybe probably add something from what you've said specifically to the point you analyzed is that, like, given bursaries today have got systems, so most of the time they say it's like NSFAS, so academically talented and financially disabled. So I work with young people so that you find that someone is from a middle class family where the parents are working and they did very well. Those people in most instances struggle to get bursaries. But if someone is poor, because when you apply they say also bring like a proof of those, so at least sort of like they are trying to, you know, help those who are actually needy. And even as the bursaries go to an extent that, you know, preference will be given to female applicants. So there are bursaries which sort of like help those who have been on the receiving end. So yeah.
Okay. Well, just to build on your comment, it's not a perfect system, but there are resources available. And as social entrepreneurs, as people who are going to be potentially working in the field, I want you to alert you to the fact that there are financial and other resources available. But it is how do you go, to go and unlock that. So how do you build your case? How do you initiate your project? How do you create that kind of compelling, convincing case for your project so that someone who sits in some office somewhere looks at this and says, wow, you know, this has massive social impact. It has a good value add. So that's what I wanted to alert you to this. Now, when I was based at UKZN, we had a social investment office. And I think these are important things to bear in mind. if you are going to be working in this field. And it is what do I believe are the essential elements that you need in order to staff such an entity, such an organization, such an office. Firstly, you need to have good value-adding projects. You need to have projects which can excite a potential or a prospective donor. Secondly, you have to have the right personality to establish and to leverage relationships. Yes?
So what does SI stand for? I feel like I missed that.
Social investment.
Oh, investment.
Okay. Now that's an important one. If you're going to be a shy, retiring, introverted person, it's going to be very difficult for you to establish relationships. So you'll have to engage in some introspection and work on developing that more confident, interactive personality. And that's a behavioral issue, so it might take some time. But there are organizations that work with that. There's Toastmasters in Johannesburg. There's the Dale Carnegie course that you can do. And I will strongly advise all of you, including myself, to acquire good communication skills. Interpersonal communication skills, where you engage with people. Intrapersonal communication skills, where you can engage with yourself, where you can reflect, where you can think things through. And of course, the impersonal, where you can interpret what is happening around you. So communication skills are extremely important. Doesn't matter which area of endeavor you're involved in. One of the biggest challenges we find in the world is that people are not authentically communicating with each other. That's why thousands of years down human civilization, we still find the problems of conflict in so many parts of the world. Why can't they just talk to each other? Why must they shoot the hell out of each other? Why is it that so many decades after democracy, we find these issues of racism arising? We've been living next to each other for years, but do we really know each other? Do I see you? And when I say do I see you, it's not do I look at your form, do I connect with you intellectually, socially, spiritually? I often start, ask my students, who are you? Let me start by saying, who are you?
Angry black.
Sorry? You're an angry black woman. Okay. Who are you? Sorry? You're an angry black man. What too many angry people here. When I ask people, who are they? The first thing they say is, my name is John, or my name is Smith. And I say, but that's not who you are. That's just your label. When you were born, your parents labeled you Shanaz, Shazia, and you weren't labeled angry black woman. You became an angry black woman. So you were given a label, but that's not who you are. Who you are is when you go into yourself, when you deeply introspect and you think, what makes me tick? When you are lying in your room at night and there's nothing else around you, and you're only left with your thoughts, who are you? That's when you have that sense of, what defines me? What is my value system? When the going gets rough, what resources do I draw on? How do I manage my anger as an angry black? What made me angry in the first place? And is anger the right way to deal with it?
Yes.
Okay, are there more constructive ways? When I'm angry, do I alienate people or do I draw them closer to me? So these are the kinds of introspections that you need to engage in. So you need to look at, do you have the ability to establish and to leverage relationships? And I'm hoping that all of you do, because life is based on relationships. We are not here on our own.
Yeah.
You're not in our own. I am because of you, and you are because of me, whether you like it or not. So when they talk about, what is that beautiful saying? What is Ubuntu? Ubuntu is a highly evolved social value. And it's a social value that tells me I need to preserve this planet for the future generations to come. Sorry? Okay, leadership, yes. Okay, so to follow on from that is, are you fit for purpose? Okay, and my question to you is, are you fit for purpose in what it is that you want to achieve in life? Are you fit for purpose? Whatever it is you might want. So again, it's to do with that introspection. So do we have a fit for purpose? Is ASRI fit for purpose in what it wants to achieve? I don't know what its objectives are. If Anglo-Americans' objective is to mine the gold and diamonds and uranium and platinum across the world, are they fit for purpose? Do they have the right technology? Do they have the right mix of skills?
Do they know how to treat their miners?
Do they know how to treat their miners? Okay, so yeah, we need to interrogate all these things. It is not just statements. Okay, the intra and entrepreneurship skills, stakeholder buy-in. Okay, entrepreneurship is when you sell outside the organization. Intrapreneurship is when you try to mobilize your team internally. So when I talk to you about these things, it's intrapreneurship. I'm here right next to you. I can see you. I can hear you. And if you try to project outside, that is entrepreneurship, and you get external stakeholder buy-in. We need to have strong governance structures, governance that works. Okay, I said early on that corruption is one of the biggest weaknesses and threats to our democracy and to our growth, because there's a cost attached to it. Every time someone says, this cup here, I'm going to buy this cup from you, or so, they add the top slice, they add a layer on top of it. Hey, give me the tender and I'll give you some money in your back pocket. So the tender's worth 50,000, make it 75,000, 25,000 goes to you. We need trustees. Most non-profit organizations have a group of trustees. And the trustees are the people that sort of have the oversight of the organization. But very often trustees want to become trustees because it looks good on their CV. I'm the trustee of this organization, that organization, but what value do I add? So if you are setting up, the young lady, you want to set up your own NGO one day, when you select your trustees, look at the right skills mix. What value can these people be the right ambassadors for your organization? Are you the right ambassador for the organization that you represent? Whether the organization is yourself, angry young woman, whether the organization is your family, are you ambassadors for your family? What ambassadors are you? To have an up-to-date and relevant database means I spoke about prospect research, so to do research, to be constantly in the loop of things. To have good project portfolio that are in alignment with the organization. Organization has certain values. So if you think that the values of ASRI might be kind of social entrepreneurship, I just heard social franchising, development. So are the projects in alignment with that? If you suddenly take on a project, if your project is AIDS research and you take on a project to do work for a drug company that sells drugs that are very expensive, is there not a clash in the value systems of what you are doing, what your organization stands for, and the project that you are doing? Do you have the strong advancement skills of stewardship? And do you have the ability to inspire, to market, to sell? Okay, so think about these things. I know there's quite a few points there, but just ponder over it. I hope you can see this at the back. Nowadays people speak about scale and sustainability. Okay, scale is if you increase something, make it bigger, like ShopRite Checkers. ShopRite Checkers is scaling significantly. It's growing into Africa. And Whitey Basson, who is I think the CEO of ShopRite, is one of the wealthiest men in South Africa. if not the wealthiest men. So they scaled. If you look at Nando's, they've scaled. McDonald's, the American companies are very good at scaling. Starbucks are coming into, what does Starbucks sell? Coffee. Starbucks is coming into South Africa under, I think, Taste, the Taste Group. So if you go to New York, you find there are thousands of Starbucks shops. Every corner you find maybe 1, 2, 3, but the Americans are very good at scaling. So to come back to scale and sustainability, firstly, fundamentals. You need to have a compelling vision. Okay? You need to address a real need. And you need to show how the recommendation that you are coming up, how your project is going to add value. Compelling, it must address a need, and it must be able to add value. The second point there is to align with the external environment and to lead from an emerging future through innovation. Now, to lead from the future is a statement that was coined by a man called Dr. Otto Scharmer. And Scharmer says we must lead from the future by anticipating what the trends are going to be. So by anticipating the trends, you are already trying to preempt what's going to happen through the projects that you're going to come with that you're going to evolve. Anglo-American used to have a scenario planner. His name was Clem Sunter. The fashion industry has a man called Dion Chang. Have you heard of Dion Chang?
Yes.
He used to work for Edcon. Yeah, he used to work for Edcon, and now he's a kind of a trend analyst.
Yeah.
He basically anticipates, what's going to happen. And who was very good at this was Steve Jobs. Steve Jobs was from?
Apple.
Yes, Steve Jobs and Apple. So leading from the future, ladies and gentlemen, is to think about, how can life evolve and how can we position ourselves in order to catch that wave just as it starts. We need to manage complexity. Okay, life is very complex. Life is kind of very changing very rapidly. Through facilitating intra and extra organizational dialogue. We need to talk to people. We need to talk to people from different sectors. We need to talk to people from different disciplines. Let me tell you a quick story. Have you heard of the Medici effect? The Medici family, many years ago during the medieval times, Europe went through what is called the Dark Ages. Have you heard of that? Yes. If you remember your history. And the Dark Ages were when there was this kind of during I think it was after the war, and everything was very quiet in Europe. There was nothing much happening, and there was a very wealthy family called the Medici family. And the Medici family were patrons. Because of their wealth, they could support various initiatives, the arts, sciences, etc. And what they did was they brought people together. So they created intersections between artists and scientists, etc. And through that clash of the different disciplines, you had the spark of innovation, the spark of creativity, and the spark of new growth and development. So if you take a person like Leonardo da Vinci, he was not only an artist, he was an engineer, he was a scientist, etc. He had everything in one. It is very different to our education system in South Africa that teaches discipline specific. So if I think of UKZN, if you go into science, you only study science. If you do medicine, you only study medicine. How many social scientists are there here? Social science. How many engineers are there here? How many engineers? How many aspirant doctors are there here? You see, so if I had to throw a mathematical question to you, you probably find that many of the social scientists won't know what the hell is this guy talking about. because we have such a silo mentality. Now, can you imagine how your lives would be enriched if you could learn a little bit of engineering, a little bit of science, a little bit of this? It would give you a depth and breadth of life in general. And that is what the Medici family did. And there's a book called The Medici Effect. So the way we understand complexity is not to view Medici, M-E-D-I-C-I. It's actually it's a great book to read. So how do we manage complexity? We manage complexity by becoming multidisciplinary. It's always a mouthful, that word, multidisciplinary. Okay, so you have to take a broad interest. So your homework, did I give you homework earlier on today? Yes, you must, okay. So your other homework is to start reading across disciplines. Read a little bit about science, read about maths. Find the joy in the pleasure in what makes these other disciplines tick. Yes.
And then just to add on to that, there are people, right, internationally online where, so they're called what, liberal degrees.
Yes.
There's a term for them now, like liberal degrees, where there are courses where you choose what you want your courses to be. So it's either for like 2 years or like a year or whatever, and then you decide from whatever discipline you want, you sort of create your own degree. And yeah, so it's, well, I've only ever seen one online, and like, I don't know if it exists in physical or you do it online, I don't know what but just to add on to the whole thing of the
lifelong learning. Yeah. Yes.
I was just going to point out that at school level, to some extent, the multidisciplinary approach to things is still relevant. But there's also this private university in London where they're primarily a humanities university, but you are required to take a maths course and a science course as well. So I think the ideas are out there, but still on too small a scale for what
Yeah.
we need.
Yeah. Well, look, my challenge is always going to be, and when I started my talk today, I said that I'm not a great believer in this thing about being passive. That B thing was come to you. I'm a strong believer in the power of the human being to create his or her own destiny. So the information is out there, the tools are there, but we need to change the paradigm. So if you talk about the liberal arts degree, any of you can start tonight. You don't have to go on to Khan's, was that Khan's courses or something, or Coursera, etc. All the information is there, but you need to have the interest. You need to take that step to say, okay, fine, here I am. It's what's the date today? The 15th of March, 2016. I'm here in Johannesburg. Where do I need to be tomorrow? And I've always told my students, don't go to bed tonight until you've learned something new. Monetize, add value to your time. We all have 86,000 seconds a day. But why is it that some people get more out of a day than others? What are they doing? What makes someone else like Bill Gates, Albert Einstein different to you and I? When Einstein died and they opened his brain, it was the same size as any other brain. It was slightly denser because the brain is an organ. And if you're using it, it creates all the synapses and create neural pathways. But we have the same brain. It is just how you extract value from it. So to manage complexity is through facilitating that intra and extra dialogue, to generate ideas, come up with ideas every single day. I made it compulsory for my students to play chess. They had to play chess because chess is a game of patience and it's a game of strategy. It was compulsory for them. Twice a week they had to take out the chess and we had to play chess. Now we have mind-numbing gadgets of those mobile phones. Seriously. People sit there every day, just surfing, chatting every single day. and it just, all it does is to numb your brain. It's an addiction. Okay, and then lastly here, we need to implement, we need to disrupt, we need to evaluate, we need to reflect, and we need to revise. Everything needs to be revised. You can change something that you're doing every single day. You can refine it, refine it, refine it. I do a martial art called Tai Chi. Have you heard of Tai Chi? Tai Chi is slow. It's so slow. You can learn it forever. I didn't mention to you that I was a Rotary scholar in '97, and I went to Japan. And in Japan, some of the women, they do the tea ceremony. They make tea. Now listen to this. Boiling tea, and they serve you the tea. This lady I went to, she was studying the tea ceremony for 7 years. 7 years how to make tea. Because in the Zen Buddhist tradition, it is not just about drinking tea. It's about getting the temperature just right. It's about creating the ambiance in the room. It's about that little ikebana flower in the corner. It's about so many things. So when you drink the tea, you don't just gulp the tea down. You appreciate the tea by putting your hand in a certain way under the cup. You feel the weight of the cup on your hand. When you sip that tea delicately, your taste buds explode with the flavor of the green tea. You know, I was allowed to I have a great interest in martial arts. So they do archery, the Japanese do archery. But they don't shoot the archery just like this here. They shoot it like this from high. So I said to the archer, how long have you been training this? He says, 3 years before I'm allowed to let the arrow fly. Now listen, 3 years, hours of training before he lets the arrow fly. He says to me, but when you let the arrow fly, the arrow will go where you want it to go. Think about that. When you let that arrow fly, it will go. Why? Because you become one with the bow. The bow and you become one. There was an ad on TV that I used to see where they show the Japanese warrior, the samurai, and he takes, the samurai, they use a sword. The man takes the apple and he throws the apple up in the air and it falls behind him, and he goes into that Zen mode. He pulls out his sword, and as he spins, he slices the apple in half. Because that is how finely tuned their senses are. That is how tuned they are with the environment. But what I'm talking now is like very sort of deep stuff. Okay, so implement, disrupt, evaluate, reflect, and revise. Sorry, am I losing you? I hope I'm not. Okay, so the fundraising tools that we will have at our disposal. Okay, firstly, we have your normal, your touch points. And your touch points are all of those that you connect with people. You connect with them through your flyers, your brochures, your website, etc. And then the second one, you connect through networking by hosting people at different fora, meeting people like this here at events like this, having conferences. And then you have your concept documents and your proposals. So what I'm going to do now is just to quickly send out a concept document. Can I just ask you to pass this on, please? I'm not going to spend much time with this because this is going to be your homework I gave you homework for tonight. I gave you homework for Thursday night. This is homework for Friday. Okay, there should be enough. I asked Sumaya to print copies for everyone. So when you come up with the idea of something that you would like to do, a project, the first thing before you go into a lengthy proposal is just to expand on your concept. Okay, now let me give you an idea. One of my students, and I'll mention his name to you because you won't know him. His name is Hlonipani. And one of the things I started at UKZN was an organization called BOLD. What does the word BOLD mean? Brave, yes. You know, I felt that the students weren't brave enough. I felt that they lacked muscle. So I started bold. You know, bold is a nice, confident sounding word. And if I say to you, be bold, it means man up, you know, or woman up. But BOLD was also an acronym for business, organizational, and leadership development. So through BOLD, I wanted to create the same way like you're doing here, you know, the new generation leader, but someone that was also entrepreneurial. And one of my students, Tony Pani, came to me and said, you know, I've got 2,000 Rand in my bursary fund. What do I do with it? And we talk about shares, you know, with my students I used to talk about investments and things like that. So I said to him, Tony Pani, start the business, just think about it. So I said, okay, fine, what is the shortest, you know, what business do you have in mind? I said, okay, fine, what he wants to do is, he wants to buy a container. So we went through this exercise, we kind of wrote up the concept, and at the end of it, he bought a container for 2,000 Rand. He went to Coca-Cola and he said to Coca-Cola, where he lives in Stanger in Durban, which is about 70 km from Durban city, there are a number of spaza shops, and he wants to become the preferred supplier of Coca-Cola to the spaza shops. Coca-Cola said to him, fine, they support entrepreneurship. So he got his uncle involved, and Coca-Cola would go there with a big truck and deliver all the 2-liter Cokes. And if they sold the Coke for a 2-liter Coke for about 8 Rand to him, he would sell it to the spaza shop for 11 Rand. So he makes a 3 Rand profit. Business was booming. Business was booming. Today, Tony Pani is an engineer, he's working in Australia. But it is still ticking over. And that's all I want you to do. I want you to start something. You know, start a project, start a business, start a change in your life, so that your life is not the same how it was yesterday, last week, last year. That's my challenge to you. All right. So this year gives you an idea. So basically, your concept is just your concept page. You know, what is the name of the project? What is the theme? What are you wanting to do? Now, if there are going to be people involved, the name of the person, phone number, email, then you have a basic summary. What is the rationale behind it? The rationale is the context. Okay, what is the project supposed to achieve? What is the prevailing context that makes this project necessary? What sort of budget are you looking at? So this tells you, in this particular case here, I called it Scale Up, which was skills for computer access and learning upliftment. Now this project hasn't happened yet. So if you want to use it, feel free to do so. Okay, it was supposed to be a project that we wanted to market to the company overseas and to expand ICT skills in the townships in Durban. So it's still very fresh. So I called it Scale Up, but it actually stands for Skills for Computer Access and Learning Upliftment. And it talks about, you know, marketing materials, travel, bringing kids to site, accommodation, etc. Etc. About the organization and what your conclusion is. So this year you can use in any situation. So once you have your concept, now you start talking to people. And if you find someone that resonates with it, if you see someone's eyes light up when you talk to them about your project, now you can give them a slightly more detailed proposal. Now this proposal that I'm going to hand to you now worked. Okay, I've raised millions and millions through this.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
And you can use the template. Okay. Don't use the word the Unite program, but you can use the template. It's very straightforward. There's nothing mysterious about it. Okay, do you each have a copy?
Yeah.
Okay, there's some going to the back. Okay, now about proposals. They are written to the point. There's nothing flowery about it. The language is crisp, eloquent, to the point. Okay, you are assuming that whoever's going to be receiving a proposal don't have much time to plow through all your poetry and prose. They want to understand exactly what it is that you're looking for. UNITE stands for University Intensive Tuition for Engineers. It was a program that I've run for 19 years, and what we tried to do was we tried to promote engineering among the previously disadvantaged learners. So it had a very compelling sell because South Africa has a massive need for engineers for infrastructural development, scarce skills, etc. We had a nice logo, and we had a tagline. Our tagline was developing excellence through quality engineering education. So whoever picked this up, what does UNITE do? It provides engineering education. Then you had your proposal. It said exactly what you wanted: study bursaries for learners from disadvantaged socioeconomic and educational backgrounds. You had the contact details of the person, etc. So that was your page 1. Page 2. Here is my book. Graham Peary was the executive director for the South African Association of Consulting Engineers. Okay, they are involved in all the major projects in South Africa, and he made a statement. He said that in less than a generation, South Africa may no longer have a skilled consulting engineering base capable of maintaining the current infrastructure or of developing new infrastructure. In less than a generation, we will not have the skills to maintain or to develop. Okay, let's look at how many service delivery protests have we had in this week in the country.
Yeah.
There's been one every single day in more than one region. Do you still remember that lovely word load shedding? Hey? You remember load shedding?
Yeah.
What was the cost of load shedding to the economy? It's so big we can't even quantify it. Because the cost is not only the downtime when shops had to close, it's also the accidents that happen when the robots fail. It's when kids can't go to work because something's not happening. It's when so the costs are unquantifiable. We are already not having enough technical skills in order to deal with the stuff that you and I need for our daily use. Water. So many of the water, sewage, filtration plants in the country are breaking down. You don't know the full story, but it is dire. Now, something as basic as water. In Durban, I face the ocean. It takes me 5 minutes to walk from my door into the sea. Infinite supply of water, and we have a drought. You know, when people say there's so much water and not a drop to drink, the water is there. Why have you not invested in desalination plants like in Israel?
We don't have the energy.
Israel is a desert and they have enough water.
Wow.
Here we've got oceans of water and we haven't. Now whether if it's an energy issue, why have we not invested in solar power? We've got 300 days of sunlight throughout the year in the Karoo. Think about it. Now we're talking about investing in nuclear energy that's going to cost trillions of rand. And we can't spend to put up those solar panels to catch sun. That's in, look outside the window. I said you must have a paradigm of abundance. Look at all the sun outside. Energy. More energy than you can use. But we don't think smart enough to harness that. This year, the introduction talks about the dire scenario by Kimmie, and then basically how we can address that. Capacity building, promoting engineering, creating an awareness of technology, developing study skills, upgrading through scientific, mathematical, and problem-solving skills, providing bursary support, and then it talks to you a bit about the organization, with the university, and then the project itself, what it will do, promote the benefits of technology, market engineering, and a budget breakdown, etc., and then a conclusion. Through this 1, 2, 4 pages, I've raised in excess of 300 million. 300 million, like this. So it's not dependent on how dense your document is. It's dependent on, can you package something in such a beautifully elegant way that when someone reads it, it resonates with them. It doesn't have to be bound in leather, but it has to have a it doesn't have to be. This is not the Sissy Boy jeans version that costs us 800 rand. This is a Mr. Price version. Okay, simple, straightforward, to the point. But also, here is the crux, ladies and gentlemen. It was underpinned by my personality. So when I go talk to Nedbank about this, I also go and say, but Nedbank, you know, when you look into the eyes of the students, you see your future there. And I say, what are you talking about? I say, these students, when they start igniting their potential, they're going to change South Africa. They're going to be creating this and that. You know, Nedbank at the end, they say, where's the checkbook? They want to sign right there and then. Because it's true. It's true. I'm not making things up. It's true. You are the future of this country. You are the future of this country. I'm 53 years old. You may be in your 20s. You've got another 30 some odd years before you catch up to my age. How much can happen in 30 years? How much if Uber can change the transport sector in 2 years, what can you not do in 30 years? So the elegance, this piece of paper, I want you to look at the language. I want you to look at the layout. I want you to interrogate it. And if you have a project, use this as a template around which you design your project. Are you with me? Take it to market. I dare you. I challenge you. I shouldn't say I dare you, I challenge you. Okay, so it's possible through this. This is a living document that has had success stories. And I think if you adhere to the principles underpinning this, you can have a lot of success stories as well. So you need to change that paradigm. You need to not be reactive. I want you to become bold, proactive, disruptive, and entrepreneurial. Take your angry black woman, and make it disruptive and entrepreneurial. I challenge you to do that. And for those of you who might be feeling shy or insecure, look at that. Look at what skills do you need in order to transform your personality to be less shy. The world is out there waiting for you. Okay, so you need to change that paradigm. Being passive holds us back. Being reactive. Reactive says, they say there are 3 types of people: those who make things happen, those who watch things happen, and those who ask what happened. Okay, so if you ask what happened, the event is gone already. You're in a deep slumber.
Stay woke.
Yes, stay woke. Be that happening. Think of these examples. What did these 4 examples do? Okay, let's look at, I mentioned Clem Santa early on. Clem Santa said that the strongest species don't survive, the most adaptable do.
Charles Darwin.
Yeah. If you think of the dinosaurs were these massive, powerful animals. Where are they? They are extinct. What has survived? The cockroach.
That's true.
The cockroach has survived. They say the cockroach will survive a nuclear holocaust because they are adaptable.
Even the microwave.
How adaptable are you? No, please don't microwave the cockroach. Okay? How adaptable are you?
What's wrong with microwave and cockroach?
If you look at companies that are not adaptable are companies that die. So this thing about, and maybe write this down so you can stick it in your bedroom or your bathroom when you brush your teeth, you can look at it. The strongest species don't survive, the most adaptable do. I want you to be adaptable. I want you to look at how society is changing. I'm not asking you to give up your values. There are certain values that might define you and that you have to hold on to.
Yeah.
But the rest of it you can change. You can change habits. If you look at these PayPal has changed the way of online payment. And through doing online payment, you can buy anything, anywhere, all over the world. Through encryption, you punch in your credit card details, it encrypts it, they pick it up in the United States, Amazon will send you a book within a week, or a CD, whatever it is you want to buy. So now, the marketplace is global. I wrote a book called MoneyWise. If I want to sell my book on Amazon, I can do so. People can buy it in Uzbekistan. So PayPal has disrupted the way of doing trade. Tesla Motors, what is Tesla Motors famous for? Electric cars. Who discovered the company? Who created the company? Elon Musk from Pretoria. He is the most visionary person in the United States today. He also founded a company called Dragon X. They can send reusable rockets into space and to bring them back to Earth. Pretoria Boyke is turning America on its head. He's disrupted the whole industry. Think of Amazon.com. You can buy anything on Amazon. Think of Apple. Look at Apple's tagline. Think different. Everything here is about disrupting, being innovative. The most successful companies in the world, the most successful people in the world are those who have challenged, who have been constructively critical, and have brought about change. And if you want to join that elite club, you know what to do. Yes?
I take the point of being different and disruptive, but many of these companies what they are selling or their value proposition is buying us makes you disruptive, right? So in Apple, the critique of Apple or many other products is we are selling individuality by everyone having the same product. So I think while the point is important, I think internally I wouldn't want to feel like the models that I'm taking up are ones that I don't know actually how innovative they are. They are telling me by purchasing the products they're innovative, and have brilliant business plans in that, but aren't necessarily like disruptive cores of of what we actually need. Like Amazon, I don't know if success is it's like incredible systems delivery or it's the fact that it has a different I think I'm critical of the examples actually being that different.
Okay. To me is to look at it differentiated. Okay, Amazon is a bookshop, online bookshop.
Or a logistics supply chain.
Okay, yes. So they're differentiating capability is the fact that they have gone on this big online kind of supermarket type thing.
Sure.
The same with PayPal, the online payment system. Tesla's. So whatever they've done it differently, and that is why they have stood out. You might be able to critique a lot of the things that they do, and that's not the purpose. The purpose is what can you do differently, because that is what's going to stand out.
But wouldn't the disruptive thing be to actually not require or to the different thing would be to maybe not start a business I don't know, I feel like all the examples are within a very business thing, if that makes sense. I'm not critical of business. I think entrepreneurship is wonderful. I just feel like it may not be that differentiating to try to differentiate. I don't know.
Okay, just focus on this here.
Okay.
Okay, the strongest species don't survive, the most adaptable do. So these companies, these are just 4 examples. They've operated within a changing environment. Okay, so it's important that we, my second to last theme is stewardship. And I spoke about stewardship earlier on. Stewardship is the process of managing relationships with donors. Okay, once someone has shown an interest in your cause, an interest in your project, and they follow that up with some donation, it is how do we actually manage that relationship now? Now, this is critically important because this is what will actually enhance sustainability. So basically, it's the showing of appreciation through transparent, diligent, and accountable reporting. Okay, that's first of all. Now, most of the organizations that I've dealt with, they will tell you how and when they expect to receive feedback. But nothing prevents you from paying a courtesy call, from making a courtesy telephone call and saying, Mr. So-and-so or Ms. So-and-so, I just wanted to give you some a heads up that this project that your company has so generously funded is doing well, it's meeting all its objectives, its social impact is like this, etc. And just to keep people in the loop. Okay, and also it elevates your visibility. Visibility is where you keep bobbing up so that people can see you, they are aware of you. But it shows that appreciation. Accountable reporting is very important, and most organizations fail where that is concerned. And that is, how do you actually account for how the money has been spent? Okay, if someone says, we're going to fund this project, and you said, well, look, you know what, as part of my project, after they give you the money, I want to go do some research in Miami. Is that acceptable, yes or no? Hey?
It depends on what you research.
Well, but did you state it up front? Can someone misconstrue this as being, oh, you're just going now on a merry holiday somewhere.
Yeah.
So being transparent meaning being open. It's like saying, the president's handbook in Parliament. It says you are entitled to buy a vehicle. What does Blade do? Blade is a good communist. He buys a BMW for over R1 million. Okay? Our Minister of Education. Now it's easy to say, look, but I'm acting within the rule book. The rule book says I'm entitled to this vehicle of R1 million. But the question is, do you have to buy a vehicle for R1 million, or can you, or would a Toyota Yaris be acceptable? Okay, do I need to sit in a fancy BMW that guzzles? It's got a V60, the engine, or could a Yaris take me from point A to point B? It comes back to mindset again. Okay, it's not my money, it's the government's money, and the rule book says, so I'm acting within this. But what does your personal ethics say about that? So stewardship is about showing that appreciation, showing that you are transparent, showing that you are meeting the mandate for which the funding has been made available. Different types of stewardship. Internal communication, you have reports, acknowledgement letters, newsletters, publications. And that was my responsibility for the last 2.5 years. I would generate all the feedback to the donors. You have appropriate external media coverage through the regional or national print media. I would have liked to have seen some of the media in Joburg to be here to interview you guys. Just kind of get to meet the future CEOs and future parliamentarians. Yes. You're not angry anymore. Okay.
Yeah. Like with the whole external media coverage,
Yes.
it's a bit problematic.
Why?
Because, like, for instance, I mean, we're approaching Manila Day very soon. And as usual, white-owned companies will come into townships in their numbers and take pictures of poor-looking black kids and put on their websites.
Oh.
So, with the whole, and the thing is, like, it's sort of like, look at us, we're being progressive, look at us, we're doing all these amazing things. So I'm very critical of when, especially white-owned companies, their websites are
Okay.
just full of
The thing is, white-owned companies don't only write for a white audience. They write for an audience that includes me, who is not so white, who includes you, that's not so white either. So when I read the Mercury or the Daily News every day, or the New Age or the Citizen, I read, I don't say, well, this is a white-owned company. I read, and hopefully I'm critically minded enough to be able to filter the BS that sometimes comes through the media. So many people don't filter all of that. But it's important but what I'm saying is, we need to look for opportunities where we can showcase what we are doing. So if you're having a project of whichever nature, you can decide which newspaper, black-owned or white-owned or whatever, you want to invite to that event. Okay, how many black-owned newspaper companies are there in South Africa?
I can create my own one.
Create your own one, yes. Yes.
So I agree, stewardship is really important. Whenever I've done fundraising, it's a big piece of it. A question I have is about managing resources. So one of the challenges of when you have like a very established donors that in which you have a relationship and you have kind of a stable budget, it's easier to allocate funds to the stewardship part. But when you're facing budgetary pressures and you're not sure where your budget is going the next year, what tips do you have to ensure you're doing stewardship in an effective way so donors feel thanked and recognized, but at the same time, funds that you want as much of your funds to the beneficiaries as possible, that you're not using more than necessary towards stewardship activities?
Okay, I think that's a very good question. The question relates to how much funds can you allocate or should you allocate to operational matters?
Well, how to do this without being a drain on the
Okay.
resources? Yeah.
It's an established practice within the non-profit organization to top slice. Okay, top slicing means if your project is, let's say, 500,000, that you will either add on a little bit, make it 550,000, so the 50,000 rand is for your operational costs, or you take a percentage. Now, I don't think that there's an industry norm for that percentage, how much you take, 5% or 10%. And I think that's why it's important that when you do your financials, you can justify. Now, some of the operational matters, if you take, I'll be with you now, if you take this office here, apparently the students were funded. Okay, so someone says, look, if I say I want to have a student, a future on the future leaders course, it's going to cost 30,000 rand for that person to be here for a week. And the 30,000 rand is not only for the person to be here to pay the tutors, but it's also for meals. So how much money do you take? What percentage do you take for meals? How much percentage do you take for the running of this fan, electricity, consumables, etc.? And I think that the donor agencies, they understand that. So in your breakdown, you can say so much was used for this, so much was used for that, etc. And it will make perfect sense because a project is a holistic intervention. And sometimes there are costs, but if you are becoming extravagant, I think it undermines the integrity of the project and the organization. So it's a difficult question to answer from terms of the percentage point of view.
So not so much, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. We have an organization at the university called Incubate. And Incubate brings in, manages the research funds on behalf of the university. So funds from the CSIR, etc. And they take 18%. So if a project is worth 500,000, they will take 18% of that for the administrative costs to keep Incubate running.
But my question is more, what suggestions do you have to sort of get, I don't say get the best bang for your buck is maybe one way of putting it, but how do you effectively think without it being very cost prohibitive?
Okay.
So
there are different
some of
ways.
these are wordsmiths, some of them are just
Okay.
calling stuff.
There are different ways of thinking.
Okay.
For example, if you look at these ones here, newsletter publications can be quite expensive. Media coverage could be logistically challenging. So having an award can be expensive. So you have to look at low cost. You know, a handwritten note, meeting someone face to face, following up with a telephone call. If someone comes to ask me for money, I'm assuming that they are in need. Their organization is in need. But if they follow up with a phone call, I would appreciate the value that they place on thanking me. I don't necessarily want a bling thing of, bright lights, etc. So the challenge becomes on how creative can you be within your limited resources to steward that relationship. Okay, so there was a question there at the back.
Yes, so I just wanted to know, close out reports, what exactly do you put aside for this? What do you mention? Because essentially all these points, I just look at it from an annual basis. So you've been doing this annually. At the end, what exactly do you say that you haven't already covered?
Your closing out report is where you are stating the final objectives having been met. Okay, and also there you can, in your closing out report, you can acknowledge and thank all the stakeholders who were involved. So that is now where you do your extensive summary of what have you finally achieved. You have an interim report that shows the ongoing progress, and then you have your closing out report.
So you just mentioned...
Exactly, yeah.
You just refer back to that.
Exactly.
And do you ever mention the next year's plan, like in the closing out report,
Yeah.
or does that only come the following year, January?
Well, to me, I'm opportunistic. And opportunistic meaning that you always look for a gap where you can resuscitate that. Now, some projects have a natural closing out thing, and that's finished, finito. But others, for example, if you take student funding, it's never closing out. student funding will carry on for probably the next couple of 100 years. So you always look at ways of keeping the donor excited and interested in you. So even if they say, look, our budget for this year is 5 million. Next year, market changed. So they don't have it. They say, you know what, we don't have the 5 million, but our subsidiary company, they might have. So I will put you in contact. So you always keep that relationship alive. Monitoring and evaluation, the last theme. You always need to plan for growth, plan for failure, and plan for contingency. What does this mean? Growth is for scale, okay, where you have the possibility of scaling an organization. So you plan for that. However, you also need to plan for failure. What happens if the way that you see your project unfolding doesn't happen according to that plan? If something radically goes wrong. Let's, for example, take the fees must fall. Companies have invested millions of rands into students who are studying. But because of the disruptions at the university, lectures are being disrupted, people can't get to lectures, campuses have been burnt. So those students now who have been in the system, the threat of failure is very, very high. How do you cope with that? How do you cope for your project when certain things can fundamentally go wrong? And how do you plan for contingency? How do you plan for when the scenario changes, when things don't fall apart, but the environment changes? So as the project manager, as the project champion, you need to have a lateral vision. You need to look at the landscape and see, okay, like when I spoke about chess earlier on, what happens if the person moves the bishop there or the knight there? What happens then? How does it impact on this area that you're working in? So that you can anticipate and you can make the necessary adaptations. So nothing really works in a kind of a singular, one-dimensional way. Life is full of surprises. So in terms of I hope that you can see this, the monitoring and evaluation, most of the projects that I've been involved in have a built-in system of what people are expecting. What are the expected outcomes, whether it is quantifiable, whether they want to know in terms of statistical analysis, or whether they want qualified data. And they would probably guide you along the process. So you either have a check list where you can either tick off or fill in the areas. So in terms of the monitoring and evaluation, as the project champion or as a project manager, you need to be on top of your game. You need to know what is going on. Okay? So there's a clearly defined process. There are role definitions of the people who are supposed to be involved. You have certain timelines within which to achieve your objectives, and those timelines are determined by the contractual obligations. Nowadays, when people talk about a contract, sometimes they use the word a memorandum of agreement or a memorandum of understanding. You have the mid-project assessment, where it's usually midway, where you look at how the project is unfolding. And then you can have your presentation and your review, and you can do intervention if required. And I've kind of called this bang for buck. Bang for buck is, people want to have maximum value from the investment. And as the project manager or the project champion, you are supposed to ensure that they get the maximum value. almost done. They said to me 3:20. 6 P's just to take you home. Purpose. You must know your purpose. The whole objective of working in this space is to create opportunities. Opportunities for learning, opportunities for growth, opportunities for development. So that's the 1 P. The second P, you need to pull together. I spoke about collaboration. You never exclusively work on your own. There'll always be someone that you can work with. And to me, it is recommended that you work with other people. So you can benefit from synergy, you can benefit from collaboration, and also you can get a hopefully objective sounding board. 2 heads are better than 1. Perseverance. Never say die. Life is full of pitfalls. The roads to success are filled with potholes of failure. And I like what someone said to me once, what the word fail means. The word fail means first attempt in learning. First attempt in learning. So from your failure, what learning values are you extracting that you ensure that you don't make the same failure again? People, sponsors and champions. Sponsors are those who will underwrite your cause with a check, who will come to the party with some resources. Champions are those who believe in your cause, who might not necessarily have the resources, but they will give you that morale support. And we need that as well. And very importantly, personality. What did I say early on? You must have that kind of personality that's fit for purpose, so you can make things happen. And the last P, which we saw so much during the 2011 Soccer World Cup. 2010, passion. You know, everywhere you went around Durban, and I think other parts of the country, you saw people wearing the South African flags on their bodies. They had the flags on their cars. There was such a pride and an optimism. So passion is very important. And lastly, ladies and gentlemen, thrive against all odds. Thrive against all odds. Repeat after me. Thrive against all odds. Again, thrive against all odds. One last time. Thrive against all odds. Never give up. Never give up. So, thank you very much. I thought they were tired.
Thank you so much, everyone. I'll come in and do registration very quickly, and then that will be the end of the day. Thank you again for coming to experience.
Thank you for listening.